Alright, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope we don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board, for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 89 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host today, Julian Gill, admin on the FAQ message board, and I'm joined by Lonnie, St. Louis Kiss. Welcome back, sir.
Hello, thanks for having me back.
The almighty Marcus Almighty. Mark, good to see you again. And the voice of reason, 69th Blizzard Ken. Gentlemen, we've put the band back together.
Wow.
So, news, well, let's see, a show in Tijuana has been announced, and when is that? November 19th?
12th?
Let's see.
19th?
Kiss Monster, the place where you can actually get tour dates and tour info.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
Sponsored by tequila?
I was actually right, and it's November the 19th in Estadio Gaspart in Tijuana. So,
Nice.
Gaspart?
Gasmart.
That sounds classy.
Yeah, I think it's a baseball stadium.
Okay.
I did actually.
Oh, really?
I looked at it on Wikipedia, but I didn't really think Wikipedia
Interesting how it
could be that
sells.
accurate. So yeah, I think it's about 15,000 capacity. And that's a week after they've got a date scheduled in Monterrey, which makes you wonder, are we going to see in the middle of those maybe a couple of Mexico City dates? And would anyone on this conversation be going to any of those shows?
Mexico?
Me, I don't think so.
I'm not going down there for that, no.
It's just a little far for me.
Yeah, too far.
A little out of the way.
Too far,
Yeah.
says the guy who was actually going to fly to an expo in Sweden for a day and come back the next day. So I was that close, but I'd forgotten one minor detail: the wife's anniversary.
Oh, yeah.
The wife's anniversary.
Well,
Bring her with you.
Wow.
no, you're right. My anniversary, and I had completely slipped my mind. I was like so excited about the possibility of going to Sweden. I was like, and then I saw,
wife's
shit, the
anniversary.
date. They can't do it. Damn it. So, all right. So let's get into today's topic, and we're gonna celebrate an album today, and its anniversary actually tomorrow on Friday, the 23rd, is the official release date of Lick It Up. But September could also be the anniversary of just about half a dozen albums in the Kiss catalog, be it the Dire, Psycho Circus, or Animalize, Asylum, solo albums. There's a fair few to choose from for September, but just because of the date that the show's being recorded and the date that this album comes out, lick it up. All right, guys. So, Ken, I'm going to go straight to you as the guy who was on the floor, on the ground, in the Kiss Army, 1983. I don't even remember the unmaskings, so I don't know if that meant I didn't have MTV at the time. I don't remember any of that. What do you recall of first seeing Kiss unmasked, and what did it do to your psyche?
Yeah. Well, I remember seeing that live. I did watch it live on MTV, so I caught wind of it. Knew they were going to do an unmasking. I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty interesting, finally seeing them. So, yeah, me and a few other guys that I was living with in a home, rented home, we got all down there and ready to go and turned on MTV, and here they are. It was interesting. It was like, oh, wow, that's what Gene looks like. And Paul was okay, pretty much what you expected Paul to look like. And then Eric Carr and Vinnie Vincent, Eric Carr looked great, and then Vinnie Vincent was like, he was almost seemed out of place in a way, just his look. I don't know what it is.
Really?
It didn't have not that rock star look to me as fitting in with the other guys, but doesn't mean he can't play music or anything. But so yeah, it was something. It was very cool. And then the video, they showed the Lick It Up video, and at the time I thought that was very very cool. Looking back at the video now is kind of a little goofy. I like the, you know, in concert part, or not in concert, but on that little stage that where they're playing. I would have rather had that the whole time than the other mumbo jumbo going on during the video. So it was interesting. I was all hyped up about it. It didn't bother me them taking off the makeup. I thought, like, you know, Paul says, you know, the makeup doesn't play the music. They do. So
yeah. So here's a cool thing about the filming. I've got the memo, internal memo from that era, and it says that the filming was scheduled to be on Friday the 16th of September, and it may well have not aired until the Sunday, because they had some work to. I think it's always been assumed that it first aired on the 18th, and that could probably be checked on the the TV guides and all that stuff. But it's just so, the show will basically go as follows. J.J. Jackson will open the show. You will be in the background in silhouette. Jackson will talk about your great career, and the 10-minute montage will play. There'll be a match dissolved from a still photograph of each of your faces to your own face live as he introduces you. The interview will take place. Then Paul will introduce the video. The video will play, and that's the end of the show. It's like, here's
short.
Yeah, it's short and sweet is, what the memo indicates, that they were going down to MTV Studios on West 33rd Street, and it's just like matter of fact, but you get the debut of the Lick It Up video. So let's talk a little bit about that video first before I ask Mark and Lonnie about their first encounters with the album. What did you think of that video? I remember seeing it early on as a fan, and obviously we'd already been blessed with Heaven's on Fire and the glorious trio that came with Asylum. And this one I didn't see until a little bit later because it wasn't in rotation. I thought I was just like, what the hell are they doing? What is the storyline? The squeezing of food bottles. Yeah, but I just don't get how you get from rock and roll to post-apocalyptic food habits. Lonnie, video impressions.
It's a bit peculiar. It's a little unsettling, but it sets the theme for what's to come with videos over the next few years, I guess, with them. It's just very, very strange, very odd. They did maybe their best video off of Creatures of the Night with I Love It Loud, which is, arguably one of their best videos, if not their best ever video. And they, went into this and like, I don't what was so wrong with just, being on stage and playing than having some, post-apocalyptic world and, just some random, fires and, it's like, oh, what are we doing? So it's kind of strange, but I don't know. I guess I've just kind of, at this point, I've really just kind of accepted it because it's just, look at their other videos in the 80s. I mean, they didn't really, you can't necessarily look at, well, they did this piece of crap, but when they went and did their next video for Look It Up, they really got it right on that one because they didn't get it right on any of the videos for any of the albums in the 80s. So Kiss was never really good at making videos. Like All Hell's Breaking Loose is like the same freaking theme. You know what I mean? When they went and did that, it's like continuation.
All Hell's Breaking Loose actually won an award.
A raspberry?
It was I think
same awards at this
MTV Video Award or something, like cinematography or something. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
What's with that piece of meat that he keeps eating there? I don't understand.
He's hungry. Here, let me put it on the fire. I'm a barbarian. I'm going to get it off the bone like a man.
I need meat. I require meat.
All you need in the background is the Village People, Macho Man, while he's cooking that meat. I mean, you go from,
all you need in the background is like a roller coaster, like he's at Six Flags or something, eating a turkey leg.
It's like they almost wanted to be licking whipped cream off girls, and they knew they couldn't get away with that, so they had girls eating whipped cream.
Better.
And that hope that everyone would mentally put the two together. In the video, the live sequences are really cool. The band on like the bonfire. So if it had been a performance video, purely that, I mean, maybe it's just too campy. It's steeped in the time. Twisted Sister, was notorious in that era for having the kind of campy, hilarious videos. And, other bands, Motley Crue went close. I think Looks at Kill, and the other one off Shout at the Devil, both kind of had a little bit of that edge to them. And then Kiss comes along and tries to do what Twisted Sister and Motley Crue have done and fail miserably. Plus, they're uncomfortable at being unmasked. So, I think as good as it is as good as it gets. Mark?
I'm a little uncomfortable watching it.
Yeah. Well, I clearly remember this period because my sister, being 7 years older than me, I was about 10 when this came out. And I remember she was just running all over the house, about this unmasking business that was going on. And, whenever I had the TV on, she was always quick to grab the remote and toss me aside to see if something was on yet from the KISS camp there, so she can catch the video. So, I remember missing a few episodes of the Three Stooges while she booted me out of the way to see if there was some KISS on, which was not appreciated. I'm a big Three Stooges fan. But in any case, well, when the video came on, it wasn't that bad because I got the Four Stooges then, because at that point they didn't really look too hip and happening at that point, in my opinion. But the music was good. It's just when they, like Julian kind of attested to, when they came out with that new look, only Paul seemed to look really comfortable in it. I mean, the rest of them seemed a little, I don't know. Vinny, I guess because he was so new, probably didn't even have time yet to get used to the makeup part of it. So, for him, maybe it wasn't that bad. But, I thought the videos were odd. Like Julian said, they were kind of almost, tributes to some of these other made videos, like, Looks That Kill and, Too Young to Fall in Love, and that there's very many parts that were borrowed from those videos, right? But, yeah, I mean, I don't really mind the songs. I thought the songs were pretty good. I like Lick It Up as a record, but they could have did a bit better with the videos, I thought.
How is Lick It Up for the first single of the first album where you take your makeup off? Is that enough of a declaration of intent for a band trying to move forward as a new band, as a new image? Ken, what do you think? Was that the right song? Let's start talking about some of the music on the album. When you think of them saying, this is us in 1983, we don't need the makeup anymore, we're going to stand on our own 2 feet, with our music and let the music do the talking. Does it work as that first song?
Does it work as that first song, as a single? The statement, making the statement? I guess so. It's one of the more catchier tunes and radio friendly. So from that standpoint, I'm going to say yes. I guess they could have done, something else, maybe A Million to One or something. But yeah, that's the one. I think you have to go with the possible top 40, kind of song, and that's their statement. They're back, and I mean it has the hard sound, but it's not, it's missing the solo and all that stuff. But I guess it worked. I mean, that's the best choice I would have thought from the album.
Mark, what about you? You think that's the right declaration?
Well, I mean, at this time period too, a lot of these bands were throwing out their heavier-ish kind of material out there. So, I mean, while I really love, songs like Lick It Up and, A Million to One is a fantastic song, I don't think that those would have been, in my opinion, the right approach. I almost think that they should have started with All Hell's Breaking Loose first, because I think that's a bit more of a punchier, more catchier. I think it would have sat better with some of the other singles that were out around that time. Because Lick It Up, being as catchy as it is, it's almost borders on that kind of metal pop kind of sound to it. Whereas All Hell's Breaking Loose sounds a little bit more tougher and rugged, which I think, like I said, I think that just would have sat better with some of the songs that were out and floating around at the time. I mean, even a song like Exciter, if they would have did something similar, like a video with that song, would have been probably a bit better. It's upbeat, fast, and I just think that they should have came up with something, more in your face. Lick It Up is good. Like I said, I'm not dissing the song. I mean, we've heard it 100,000 times by now, but it's good. It's a good radio-oriented kind of song. It is the title track, so they kind of wanted to use it, I guess, to promote the record. But I still think All Hell's Breaking Loose would have been a better one to come out with.
My problem with it is I find it pretty anemic. It's a good song. I've always liked it. I could do with it a little bit less, 30 years on in concert, to be frank. But I think if you're going for the shock value of, Unmasked, this is Kiss's first single, Unmasked, then it doesn't really matter what you release. You can go with the better song. And for me, it's All Hell's Breaking Loose or Exciter are, the best of kind of representations of Kiss in 1983 for me. I would much rather have seen those as the first single, says the guy who wasn't even a fan in 1983, but it's very easy to be revisionist on a podcast. I just think you're getting more mileage out of being unmasked and having that as your segue, whether you're being played by a DJ or a VJ, as was the case. Lonnie, what's your thought?
Yeah, I don't know. The song is extremely catchy, so I understand why they chose that as a lead track. It's really catchy, and it's something that, the first time you hear it, you can, pick up and start singing along with it almost immediately. But if you're talking about making like a statement, here we are, unmasked, I think Exciter would have been an excellent choice for that. It's very upbeat, very, very hard, and very to the point, and continues on like where they left off with Creatures almost, just a very driving song. However, I don't think it would have gotten the radio. I don't think it would have gotten the radio airplay that Lick It Up did. And, we can sit here and say, well, they should have chose this song, they should have chose that song. But you know what? I think they chose the right song with Lick It Up because it was a hit for them. It's one of their more recognizable songs, and they still play it live today. So I think, as much as I like Exciter more than I like the song Lick It Up, I think they made the right choice with that being the lead track because it had legs, and it continues to be a staple in their set list. Not only in their set list, but any greatest hit package has to have Lick It Up on it because it was one of their, major hits, and it gave the band new life at a time when they desperately needed it.
Well, here's the problem: it wasn't a hit. It only struggled.
Well, Julian,
it only went to 66 in
Julian,
the U.S.
I don't need your details when I'm trying to prove a point.
And I guess that comes back to kind of like my thinking is that it wasn't a hit. It was like an ellipsis. It was like, this is Kiss Unmasked ... Whereas Exciter or All Hell's Breaking Loose would have been, this is Kiss Unmasked ! It's Lick It Up. It's an okay song. It's well crafted, but it's happy, crappy, clappy, kumbaya, rock and roll, like Shout It Out Loud is for me. It's no, it's like it's like caffeine free diet soda. It's just empty. And you're guaranteed, like you just said, for it to be on a greatest hits package or live in concert nowadays. But that's because it's another one of those songs that they can probably play with their eyes shut and 5 broken fingernails. So,
yeah, but it's also don't forget, back in the day they were kind of hyping like Dr. Love like that too. Like they had that whole advertisement out there saying the next big song. They had that little advertisement for Dr. Love. It's almost like they were trying to make their own hits out of it, even though they weren't really hits. And years later they're playing them still because they were kind of engraved in our brains, like with these advertisements and stuff, that they were the next big song. I'm almost thinking that they did the same thing with Lick It Up.
And when you go to the show, though, the casual fan knows the song, though.
Yeah.
The casual fan knows the song. You see girls, singing, "Oh, I know this one," But the casual fan jumps up and stands up for this song because it's one of them that they know. Sorry for the sirens. I'm in North St. Louis, so.
Oh, I was going to say you're not in Charlotte, I hope. I was going to say on that, 107.7 The Bone, San Francisco, I guess the Bay Area radio station. If you're going to hear a Kiss song, this is the one you're going to hear. Simple as that. Every time I've really ever heard a Kiss song, it's been Lick It Up. I think
you're lucky.
I think I've heard Shout It Out Loud and Calling Dr. Love once each, and I don't listen that much anymore because I've got a USB stick with all my music on in the car, so I don't need radio. let's get into the album a little bit more. Ken, when you picked up this album, what was that first impression to the first notes on the first song, which is The Glory of Exciter?
Yeah.
I love Exciter. I mean, that's probably one of my favorite songs on the album. One of the best ones. It's great way to open the album. I mean, just goes right into it, and Paul's vocals are, top form. He's pretty much, I don't know, not like screaming, but he's really going for it. And then now this is the one that doesn't have. It's not Vinny on the solo on this one, right?
There is
or am I wrong?
There is no Winnie Vincent on this. No Meredith.
Rick Derringer, I think.
Derringer, who's a well-known guitarist. So, but it was still great. I mean, great solo. But yeah, just it was like, okay, here we are. We're in your face. This is what we are now, and I love the song. I mean, I don't know. I think I wrote something out about it, but not much about it. But it's just so good. The whole thing's good. I have nothing bad to say about that one.
Mark,
great lead off.
What's going to be your take on it?
I always loved Exciter. I thought it's one of the better and stronger opening tracks that they've had for a while. I mean, usually Kiss are pretty good for having strong opening songs on their records. I mean, I can't really think back to a record where the opening song wasn't too good. Maybe just for Elder, but that was maybe if you consider the actual real order. If they were to go from Fanfare, that would have been a bad opener. But The Oath was good. But getting back to this, I think Exciter is pretty good. I mean, it's strong. It has a lot of good hooks to it. I think more importantly, it slotted in, like I said before, perfectly with what was going on at the time out in the world of music. I think when people heard it, lots of people are saying, this Kiss is cool again. They're starting to forget the Unmasked and the Dynasty period and starting to look back at Kiss being kind of cool again now.
Yeah, so here we are. Let's talk about Rick Derringer for a moment. Vinny, apparently, they didn't like his solo. I'm just going to play a bit of that. If my fucking machine will work.
Beep.
Okay.
Love that part. Yeah, that's Vinny's rehearsal on the obviously the instrumental. So I see nothing on that or hear nothing on that really explains why Rick Derringer ends up doing the solo, because I really don't see that much difference. That's not a horrendously complex solo either to play. There's a couple of dives in there and some whammy shit that takes a little bit of manual dexterity and motor control to do, but the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Mark, can you think of any reason why they pissed on Vinny other than pissing off Vinny deliberately?
Well, I mean, just when you played that to me now again, because I did hear it once before and it was a while since I've heard it, but I liked it, honestly. I mean, I've always been kind of supportive of what Vinny does on record with Kiss. Now let me emphasize that, with Kiss. He does some good stuff with them because, like I said before, I think that when he's kind of controlled and reined in a bit, he can play some really excellent stuff. And there was nothing on that solo that was bad. I mean, a lot of the whole beginning of it was similar to what ended up on record anyway. It was just the actual physical solo little section part there where he did some few different things, and it's it sounds like Vinny, and there was nothing to it that made me cringe. You know what I mean? Like when you hear stuff in the Vinnie Vincent Invasion stuff, you kind of go, "Oh God!" When he starts really going through that whole Bumblebee out of control sound that he can fall into, and it's not present here. It's good. I'm just guessing that maybe there was a section or two of the song that Paul or something heard differently, and once he kind of heard it that way, he kind of put his foot down and was either do it this way or we'll have somebody come in when you're not around and replace it, which according to Ken Fuller, that's who did that. Yeah, I think he did the behind the mask. In the book there it says that they did it behind his back, that they just replaced it, and he knew nothing about it being replaced until after it came out. So obviously it's one of those situations again where he didn't want to argue with him anymore about it, just said, okay, yeah, do it, and then they just retracted with Rick Derringer. Honestly, I would have kept Vinny's.
Yeah, I love this one quote from Vinny. I think Rick's a great guitar player, by the way. Yep.
Yeah.
No offense.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was probably too busy fighting off the cockroaches in that shitty little hotel that they had him in. So
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, I'm being nice to Vinny today.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I'm being supportive, like the prop was on the cover of the album, right? All right, Lonnie, what's your take on Exciter?
Man, what doing?
We need a rim shot here to do.
Exciter, one of my favorite tracks on the album. I think, like I said, if it was up to me, I would have made that the lead single off the album. I think it's a great, just ass kicking song that, like I said, just kind of picks up where has the energy and picks up where Creatures left off. I think it's a perfect opening track for the album. Song I wish they would have played more of in the '80s. I don't think they could play it now. I don't think today's version of the band would do it justice, personally, especially given some vocal limitations today. But I wish I would have played it more. I wish I would have played it more in the '80s. Like I would have loved to hear like the Revenge lineup do that in about '92 to see what they could have done with it. I think that could have sounded really good with that. That lineup.
I never ever thought that. Excellent.
With that lineup and his music, that's my, and we all know it's my favorite lineup. But I mean, in my opinion too, it's the most musically talented lineup that they ever had. And we always talk about like those '94 shows down in South America, how just fantastic and tight the band sounded. I would have loved to hear the band jam on something like that. I think, and Paul still sounded fantastic at the time. I would have loved to hear some Revenge era lineup play like a song like Exciter. I think that would have been really cool. So it's one of my favorite tracks in the album. I wish it would have gotten more play up until the reunion when they just kind of reverted back to the 70s.
Yeah, and here's the cool part is Exciter was in the set quite a bit, mostly for Europe. I think it made it into the first few weeks of the US leg of the tour and then got dropped. So, I mean, on the bootlegs, I always used to love hearing that.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of those things. And yeah, I would love to hear today's lineup do that, because I think Tommy could do that solo.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have any problems whatsoever with it.
But I don't think the vocals would be. I think the vocals would be too strenuous.
Yeah,
personally,
it's probably a bit much for Paul now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want it to cost him a couple of other songs. If he tried to go there. Ken, first take on that, and then take us into track 2. Talk about Not for the Innocent as well.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, you were talking about the solo of Vinny's solo for Exciter, and that's the first time I heard it. You playing it, I guess I hadn't looked it up, but yeah, it sounds fine. I mean, I'm used to you get used to a certain solo because you've listened to it so many times. So I'm used to the Rick Derringer solo, but from what I can tell, it's not that much different, really, from Vinny's. So I think that would have worked fine. I mean, yes, they did it behind his back. They've done that before, like Sweet Pain and and other things, right? So, but I'm sure Vinny, it wasn't because Vinny was out to play cards or anything. had the card game. He probably, he did. He put a solo on it, and they just didn't like it for some reason. I don't know why. So that's a great song, as I said earlier. So now, going to the second song it's a 1-2 punch. Probably one of the best 1-2 punches for opening songs. Not for the Innocent is it may be my favorite song on the album. I think it is my favorite song. And I love how it builds at the beginning. So the slow build, then it's kind of going. Then the bass comes in, and it just really just picks up, and Gene's vocals, top notch. The whole thing is good. I even like towards the end. I think one of the last choruses, when they're doing the chorus towards the end of the song, they have a droning guitar going on later in the song. That's very cool. I like that part of it. I know I wrote some stuff down about that, but yeah. Oh yeah, and then Vinny's, just a great guitar solo, and he even throws in a little bit of like an English siren or something in that one part. It makes it sound like a siren.
Oh yeah.
I thought, oh, that's cool. It's brilliant throwing these little things in there like that. So yeah, it's probably my favorite one. It would have been nice to have the trade-off vocals from the original, like the demo, had they done it that way with Gene and Paul. But it's still you're still getting the great song even with just Gene, singing, and he does it well.
So you just mentioned what I was going to mention next, which was, and that's the August '82 demo.
Yes.
I'll just play a minute of this. Preferably a part that's got vocals. Paul sounds badass. But a little strained as well. All right, so that's a little taste of it's out there on YouTube. It's like nothing special. So at this point, but back when that came out, my jaw hit the floor.
Oh yeah.
That totally blew me away, because Not for the Innocent is one of my least favorite songs on this album. I had never liked it. I had never been a fan of it.
Got up and walked out.
Yeah. And then I heard this demo, and it made me completely reappraise the song and kind of its genesis and how it really straddles the two eras of the band, Creatures into Lick It Up, and how it transforms. And now I listen to the released version, I'm like, oh, okay, it's actually a pretty good song. It's not going to be one of my favorites ever, but I don't despise it or dislike it on the level that I once did. So it's really cool to hear how something went from a Creatures feel to a Lick It Up feel, yet the musicians are very much the same across both of the albums in most cases. Obviously, there's all the guest players on Creatures. The producer's the same. You got the overall roughly equivalent sonics between the albums, with Lick It Up being a little bit more polished, a little bit more reserved perhaps than Creatures was, but just fantastic song. Not for the Innocent. Lonnie.
I'm going to echo what you were saying, Julian, actually. Sorry, Ken, but Not for the Innocent for the longest time was not one of my, was not one of the standout tracks for me on the album. It just kind of plodded along a little bit to me, and it just never really got into it a whole lot. But when I heard that Gene and Paul trading off demos, it just breathed new life into that song for me. And Paul does sound badass on that. And, I was really surprised that that wasn't included on the box set. And, what their reasoning to leave a gem like that off of.
Well, they didn't have the reel, perhaps, because it was in private collectors' hands.
No, and it's quite possible, Julian. You're probably dead on that. You know what I mean? But I think that that demo would just breathe new life into that song for me. And even today when I listened to Not for the Innocent, I was like, oh, this isn't as good as that demo. Where's that demo? If I'm going to listen to this song, that's what I want to listen to. That's my go-to version of that song. Is that demo? I mean, it's to me it's head and shoulders above what appeared on the album.
Mark.
Well, okay, I'm not going to say that I didn't like it because I actually thought it was a pretty good song. But now taking a look from it, from the sort of producer engineer part of it, I think I might understand why they didn't leave it as a back and forth vocal with Paul and Gene, is because, and this is no slight to anybody who has a lisp or anything like that out there, but if you listen to how Paul sings Not for the Innocent, he really pronounces it innocent, like he does like that whole kind of thing there. Yeah, but I think they probably listened back to it and thought, you know what, I think Gene's vocal is a bit stronger alone singing this, and I think that, I think they cut it out for that reason. I really do think that that's why they did that, because maybe it just didn't, they didn't like that whole kind of raspy S that he was doing on that whole Innocent there, But I think that the music part of it was actually really, really cool on the demo. It's a little bit more hard hitting. It wasn't as reverberated and processed as it was on the actual album. It's a bit more raw and tough sounding on the demo, which I think right away sticks out more, and I think would have really, caught people by surprise that they left it more to that style of production. But, there's nothing wrong with the album version of it. I mean, you got to remember the time again as well. I mean, if they knew 10 years later or 20 years later, people would be laughing at the amounts of reverb that were used in the 80s. They probably wouldn't have done it, right? So, because the reverberated snare is the great joke in the production world 20 years later when he laughs about, the whole heavily gated reverb snare and curse Phil Collins' name for it and stuff like that, right? So, it was, Kiss are always good with trying to follow what's happening at the time, and that's why it sounds like that. But the demo is fantastic. I think they should have put it out, like you guys said, somewhere on a box set or something like that, because it's good. Paul sings it good too, like I said. Don't get me wrong, I just really think it had more to do with the style of his singing. They just thought that maybe Gene's is more aggressive sounding, maybe suited it a bit better for him to sing the whole song top to bottom.
And could we not possibly say that this is pretty much the last Gene Demon song, kind of in that mode? Because come Animalize, you've got Murder in High Heels, While the City Sleeps, and Burn Bitch Burn. Where's the demon? The demon has flown. He's gone. I mean, Asylum, where's the demon? Crazy Nights. No. Hot in the Shade. No, he doesn't. The demon doesn't come back until Revenge.
Unholy.
Yeah. And this is really the demon's last dance. So we've already talked about Lick It Up, Young and Wasted. Always loved it. We now get into the high tempo kind of stuff, the very 80s sounding material that I dig, because this is my youth, my era, this sort of material. So Lonnie.
Young and Wasted. I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite again. Sorry, Julian. It's okay, but it's not. To me, it's not really standout-ish in my opinion. It's just kind of there, and to me, a lot of these songs on this album are just kind of there in my opinion. They're not real. As much as I love Creatures, this album is not. I don't hold it to as near high esteem as I do Creatures, because of songs I guess like this. It's just it's okay, and I get what they're trying to do, but it's just not. It's not my Kiss, I guess you could say. You know what I mean? Everybody has their own Kiss, and I'll go back to when I first became a member of the KissFAQ message board. I was really surprised of the members on the board who held this album in such high regard, because the album itself was never in my top list of albums because of and I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, but of songs like Young and Wasted and stuff like that. It was just they were never really my favorite songs to make it my favorite album. So I was really surprised by that. But Young and Wasted, I could really take it or leave it, to be honest with you. It's not like high and held in high regard in my Kiss playlist or anything like that.
Young and Wasted, that sounds like a username I banned. One of many. And I'm just looking at the lyrics there. It's like you got the Gene Simmons attitude in this. So it's, again, another kind of song that straddles the eras musically and attitude. But lyrically, it's just like Gene gave Vinny one of his notebooks full of one-liners and said, string them together into a song. You know, here, write a song from this. So you're branded by the iron, you've been cut by the knife, there's a monkey on your back. I mean,
so what the hell does that mean?
Like a fly to a spider. You know, it's just like, this is Gene's book of one-liners represented in one song.
Right.
So, yeah, but I still like it. So, Ken?
I like the song, but though it's not one of my favorite songs. I mean, this song and the next song is coming after it. They're going for that trend of the hyper speed song that's starting to go on throughout the metal scene. But I think the one thing I wrote down about this song is it sounded like Gene Simmons, his vocal cords were going to blow. I mean, he's screaming through the whole song, basically. I mean, I was like, oh God, I don't know how his throat was after that, but man, he was just full bore. I mean, this whole album, he's really, some of his best vocals are on this album, really. And not until then his vocals kind of go away for the next, until Revenge, right? So this song is good. It's not one of my favorites, but I won't skip it. I mean, I won't skip it. I'll enjoy it, but yeah, it's not one of the top songs on the album.
Mark, from a musician's perspective, or any perspective you wish to take.
Well, I mean, honestly, I think that Ken kind of touched on it, that this is those songs where they start doing the really fast up-tempo stuff. And the one thing I noticed about Kiss in general is that when they enter this time, like this speed in their songs, they start to become very samey, their music. I find that Kiss songs are usually stronger when they're pulled back a teensy bit in tempo, because they can come up with much more stronger identifiable riffs. I find when they're playing it this fast, it just goes by like a freight train, and it's just like and you can't even pick up half the stuff they're doing because it's just going by you so quickly. I think that as records go on, they do a few more of these kind of songs, like Give Me More right after it is kind of at that up tempo too, and No, 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 and all those kind of songs are like, they all try to go at blistering speeds, and that's why I think that they kind of get skipped by, like how Lonnie doesn't seem to like them, because it's just because they just seem to be very samey and there's no identifiable difference to them from song to song to song, right? Now, with the whole thing with what Ken was saying about Gene's voice there, I mean, I agree. His voice sounds like it was going to completely blow out on this one, and how badly did it probably affect his singing? Well, we know he gave it to Eric Carr to sing. He never sang it live, I don't think,
That's
ever
right.
after. So that explains how hard it was probably for him to even do this song. And another thing that I was just thinking about as well was, I'm wondering if this was the first record where they went back up to standard tuning, because for the longest time they were in E-flat playing throughout the 70s and all that time. And I know there was a period where they jumped back into standard tuning, which I have no idea why they would do that, as they were starting to sing higher and doing higher singing. Why would you go up to a little higher of a pitch? I mean, it came back to haunt them big time, as you can see now, right? But, I'm wondering if that might also be the case, too, with how Gene might have had a little bit more of a struggle, because maybe E-flat might have been a better range for him than E-natural, right, to sing in, right? But it's a good song. It's, again, another, it's Kiss. I mean, you can't knock it too much, but it's not strong by any lyrical standard, obviously. But like I said before, I think the flaw in Kiss for these kind of songs is that at this tempo, they don't really kind of mix it up enough to make them, identifiable song to song to song. It's just like a big mush of songs that are at this tempo.
So I guess a lot
That's a good point, Mark.
of what you just said could also be true for this next song for Paul Stanley. All right, enough of that. I loved that when I was 15. Now that I'm not 15, not so much. And that's one where Paul's really pushing it. And I'm just looking at one of the set lists from early in the tour. And I mean, this was the song right before Vinny's solo, so it's kind of appropriate that you've got the histrionic Paul Stanley, seizure music going for "Give Me More" leading into Vinny's solo. It's like setting him up perfectly to go nuts. But nowadays, I don't want to hear this song. It's just too much of kind of the stuff I don't like in Kiss. The tempo, which you've just talked about, Mark, it's really noticeable for me on this, even though I'm a child firmly rooted in the faster tempo of the 80s material. So this one actually bothers me. And I'll go straight back to you on this, and you probably say what I said, for when you were talking about the song before, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those two songs are almost like brother sister in that aspect, where a lot of the same things that don't make the previous song strong are in this song as well. It's just the only difference is Paul singing it instead of Gene this time, right? I mean, again, it's one of those songs where if somebody held up this record to somebody and said, "Oh, do you remember this record?" Chances are they won't bring up these two songs that we just talked about. They'll probably bring up "Lick It Up." They'll bring up All Hell's Breaking Loose, but that's also as well maybe because of the videos, so they always have a bit more eye to people, like they remember them better. But I mean, also, like, there's other songs on here too that are more stronger, I think, that would be remembered, and it's mainly because of that. Like I said, I'll always believe in that when you get up into those high tempos, you got to be a really strong writer to be able to make 3 or 4 of those songs in that tempo differentiate from each other enough that people can pick it up and say, okay, this one is obviously a lot different than this one because of so and so and so, which I don't think they did on these songs. So,
Lonnie, what's your thoughts on "Give Me More"?
I think "Give Me More" has one of the most classic Paul Stanley lines in it. And as much as we give Gene shit for "Put My Log in Your Fireplace," Paul Stanley says, "Love is sweet, so insane. Come on, lick my candy cane."
That's Vinnie Vincent. That's straight out of a Warrior song.
That is unbelievable. And we give Gene so much crap for his shit lyrics, but that is god awful. So that's my biggest takeaway from that song. It's how much crap we give Gene, but Paul's, and I know Vinny, I'm sure I had it, but Paul still sung it, so I'm still gonna rag on Paul on that one. So I'm sure Vinny had I know Vinny has a co-write on the song, and it's probably that's totally a Vinnie Vincent type, but Paul still sung it, so Paul had to put his stamp of approval on it because people still look at it as a Paul Stanley song. Who's Gene or a Paul song? What's a Paul song? It's Paul singing. So
right, it's a Paul song, but Vinnie Vincent had his candy cane in there.
Yeah. So,
but you know what though? I think you brought up an interesting point though, Lonnie, because as far as the co-writing part of it goes, I mean, I think Vinny had a lot to do with these songs. I mean, I'll never forget on listening to the Kiss Room and hearing that original demo of "Lick It Up." It's exactly the same as the record. I mean, all they just did is just said, "Paul, you sing it." So really, who knows how much Vinny had to do with the rest of the song. Sorry to cut you off, Lonnie. Go ahead.
No. But as much as we give Gene crap, I think it's time to give Paul a little crap on that one because that is awful. So, but you're right, Mark. It's like it is like a brother sister song to Young and Wasted, where it's like the same tempo. It's just like almost in the same key, probably, and it just sounds almost like, okay, well that song's over. Well, here we go, and just pick it up and we're right back at it. So there's not a lot of distinguishing marks between the two of them. They're really just kind of very, very, very similar. And you get to the point, and understand what they're trying to do with the fast up tempo. I mean, remember, it's 1983. Van Halen is huge at this point in time. Mm-hmm. This is the flashy guitars. Up fast and furious.
Double
really
kick.
Exactly. So I get what they're trying to do, and they're trying to give themselves a fresh image. They got this hot shot guitar player who's co-writing songs, who hasn't signed his contract, but we still kind of like him, so we're going to keep him going because it's very trendy at this point. So I get what they're trying to do. Are they my favorite? Again, is it one of my favorite songs in the album? No. I mean, I can't sit here and say I don't like Young and Wasted and say, well, I really like Give Me More, because they're so damn similar to one another. So it's okay. Again, it's okay. Very cheesy lyrics, but it is Kiss. So that's my take on that.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Why did we ask him to come back?
That last song and the prior song, I would. Well, these are probably my two least favorite songs on the album. First of all, plus I think, Vinny probably came up with those two songs because I think he tended to write that kind of stuff anyway, and they probably told him, we need you to come up with something that sounds like Van Halen or whatever, and he kind of whipped out something, and he co-wrote eight out of the 10 songs. He co-wrote, and like I said before, I think this is basically a Vinnie Vincent solo album with Kiss backing, because I think he had more to do with the songs than the rest of the band. So from that standpoint, and then when you were talking about Look It Up demo is actually a better version than the one they put on the album. Plus, because they also had a solo in it. In the demo version, it had that riffing that they do in concert. They actually, Vinny's version, they actually use in concert. They were using in concert, not the version from the album. They were using the extra riffing and some other things that they did in concert. So, I don't know why they didn't go with the original demo version and do it that way, but it's just a little bit of a change. So yeah, those two songs, when I was younger, like you said, Julian, they sounded a lot better when I was younger. You're into that stuff. It was like the trend at the time, but now it's okay. But I don't skip it.
Yeah, and I think we're making a case here, Universal Music, for a deluxe edition of Lick It Up, because when you take the original demo of Lick It Up is absolutely fantastic. It is to this song what the Crazy Nights demo is to that album's song, in that it is far superior, and a lot of its character and essence is lost in translation when put through the studio. I think one of the problems with Give Me More is that it's Vinnie Vincent trying to write a Van Halen song like Panama or Hot for Teacher. Both of those are kind of the screamers on the 1984 album that had come out, what was that, January 83, I think that came out, early in the year. So, it's a little bit too much of, actually it's January 84 those came out, but, in that same vein of music, just trying to write stuff that isn't really in the character of the band. Mm-hmm. Kicking off side 2 of the album is All Hell's Breaking Loose, and we've alluded to it a little bit earlier. Obviously, the second video, I think the video's slightly better than the first video, but that's not saying a whole hell of a lot. That bar is set very low on this album's video. I think the song's better. I think a song that involves all the members of the band has the benefits of involving all of the members of the band, not least Eric Carr. That it brings a different perspective musically to stuff that otherwise becomes a little bit one note, one directional. Even the stuff that Vinny's working on with Gene and Paul separately, starts to have that character across the songs, across the two albums that he works on. So I like the different character of All Hell's Breaking Loose. Lonnie.
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I like the song. Probably one of my more favorite songs on the album. It's good. It starts off it's a good song, to start off the second side of the album with Paul doing that little rap to start it off. It kind of gets you going for the second side, because you got to remember too, it's 1983, and either you're buying it on LP or you're buying it on cassette. It was a big deal of what song starts the second side as opposed to just track listings as they are now. and it really sets a tone again for what they're trying to do and what kind of image they want to portray for the band. The rap to start off is a little different, but it's cool. And when I was on the cruise that I went on, Paul like sang like the first line of it, and then like some people started singing it back to him, and he's like, I don't even know that anymore. So it was, it was entertaining. So I enjoyed the song. It's good, and to Julian's point, maybe it would have been a better lead single because it is a better song than Lick It Up. But again, we already had that debate and why they did that. But I enjoyed it. It's not a track that I'm going to sit here and rag on like some of the others. So it's decent.
Ken, how about you?
Yeah, this is one of the better songs on the album. I love the song. I think the first time I heard it, though, hearing the rapping kind of part of it kind of threw me for a loop. It was like, what are they doing here? Why are they doing this? But it grows on you after a while. The other thing is, I'm glad Eric Carr is the one I believe came up with the riff for this song. He's been able to come up with some cool riffs on the few things that he's contributed. He always seems to have a great little cool riff that he throws in there. I think he didn't like the fact that Paul changed up into that rapping part. Yeah, I don't think he liked that. He liked his own version better. But it still worked. It's a great song.
Yeah, here's a quote from Eric Carr on that. When I brought it to the band, I was expecting Kashmir, and then I hear it was going to be like a funk tune. I'm going, oh my God, what are you doing to my song? But what happened with that was I brought it to the band. Gene started working on it first, on lyrics, because he really liked it. He wasn't coming up with anything that was really worthwhile. Rather than ditch the song, Paul and Vinny took over. And they came up with a working thing for it. So, yeah, that kind of says everyone had their oar in that water. Mark, what's your take on the song?
Well, this song is a great example of what I was talking about earlier, about how Kiss seems to work better at a slightly pulled back tempo. I mean, this riff right there at the very top is a prime example of it. I mean, when you hear it the first time, it sticks in your head and you can just remember it right off the bat. And I mean, it's so easy to kind of just even hum out to yourself. I mean, you can't do that with Give Me More or, the other ones. Your tongue will drop out of your mouth if you try to do that, right? So but that's what I mean. Like, when you have riffs like that, they're memorable, and when they're memorable, people will go back and want to listen to them, and hence it becomes a popular song, right? So because the song is full of that, and even the rap idea, I mean, sure, Ken just said it took him for a loop the first time he heard it, but you remembered it though, right? And that's kind of the idea of what they were probably trying to shoot for in that. It's like, even though it wasn't something that you probably expected and probably you were taken aback by it, it's still glued in your head, and that's part of the win for them, right? Because then you'll always be kind of remembered for that sort of situation there in that song, right? So I think it's a pretty good song. Like I said, the video again, that we already talked about, how good or ungood that is, and but musically it's not a bad song. The chorus is pretty good, and it is interesting that it's probably one of the rare times that it's a complete band songwriting credit for Kiss. I mean, I think one of the rare times. I mean, what was it? Love Theme from Kiss was one of those, like all four of them, but that's like that's way back, right? So, it's a good song. I mean, and it still sounds perfect for the time. It's current, even though rap was probably relatively new at this point. So maybe it was kind of an interesting little experiment to put in at the time, putting that kind of style of singing in, because it wasn't exactly mainstream, I don't think, at that point yet. But it's a good song. It's one that if I hear come up on radio or in my player or something, I will leave it and let it play.
Radio.
I mean, well, yeah, I know. I noticed your face there, but over here in Toronto, there's a kind of a program here that we have on this radio station called Q107 Overnight. And from 12 o'clock midnight till about 4 in the morning, they play all kinds of stuff they would never play during the day. And they've actually played stuff like that. And they've played, cuts off of other albums. Like they'd play Saint and Sinner from Creatures of the Night because someone would have requested on the Overnight, play there. So it's It has been played. I mean, of course, it's not mainstream material by any stretch of the imagination, but it is still requested and it has been heard on radio. So, it's a good song.
If you're gonna mix Kiss and rap, I'll take All Hell's Breaking Loose over Read My Body any day.
Yeah.
Even 1985, 86, when I'd gotten into the band, I had never heard any rap to that point. I didn't know what rap was, so to me, this was just a different style of song, and I had no connections with any other sort of music. I hadn't heard Blondie's little rap thing either, by that point, so didn't mean a thing. I didn't know rap until Walk This Way came out, so with Run DMC. That was my introduction. Let's move on to A Million to One, which categorically is one of my all-time favorite Kiss songs. I was absolutely thrilled to pieces when Paul dragged this one out of the closet and put it on his Live to Win tour. That really made things, a nice circle for me, just hearing one of my favorite songs and his vocal performances performed by him live for me. And the rest of the audience. Very, very, very good song. This is, it builds on I Still Love You and sort of the quality of the power ballad emerging as a key component of any artist's album in this era, and does it extremely well. So I could go through a bag full of superlatives and just keep throwing them out there about this song. Got nothing bad to say about it. Just perfection. Lonnie.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. That it is maybe my favorite song on the album. One of my it's a great performance by Paul's, great performance by the whole band, and really an underrated Kiss song in my opinion. It doesn't get nearly the attention that I think it deserves. And to echo what you said too, when Paul played that on the Live to Win tour, which is, God, that's hard to believe that was 10 years ago. But when he played that, I was like, and it was like maybe the second or third song they played that night too. It's like it was really early in the set. It's just like really got me going. I was excited enough to see Paul Stanley in a club type setting, but man, you're playing. I think they went into Hydra Heart, and then the second song was Hydra Heart, and then they go into A Million to One. It's like, holy crap, this is amazing. I was just soaking it up at that point. It was just awesome. And not everybody around me knew. And it was, you're in a club, you're pretty hardcore Kiss fans if you're seeing Paul Stanley solo number one in a small setting. But not everybody around me knew A Million to One. I was just singing my heart out. It was just amazing to hear live. So but as far as just the album, the track on the album goes, it's fantastic, and it's I can't say a bad thing about it, and I wish it again, it's like one of those songs that I wish it would have gotten more attention than it has. I think it deserves a lot more.
Yeah, that Paul Stanley solo tour, that was something else. God, hide your heart, followed by A Million to One, and for us in San Francisco, Got to Choose, followed that. It was just, and then Magic Touch is in there as well. So yeah. Mark, let's get you on A Million to One.
That's another show.
Well, Million to One is probably one of the quintessentially best written 80s ballad that they ever did, I think. It's really strong. It has a really strong guitar melody line going through it. And more than anything, it has Paul Stanley at probably one of his better performances that he's done vocally on a song. And it's one of those ballads that I like because while it is considered a ballad, a power ballad, it's not sappy. You know what I mean? It's not like one of those kind of, like Every Rose Has Its Thorn or something like that, where you're kind of like, oh God, when you listen to it, right? The obligatory acoustic guitar beginning and stuff like that. It's like, come on. They kept it all electric, all kind of rocking, but still kept it in that kind of slow ballad tempo. And it really, really worked. And I think importantly as well, is being that back then still albums were a king, and the whole concept of listening to a record beginning to end was still pretty important. I think that it fit in with the album and the rest of the material perfectly. And the running order was good. It appeared at a good place within the record. And there's just like Julian Lonnie said there's nothing really bad you can say about this song. I mean, it's well written, well performed, and everybody does really well in their respective instruments on this, and the production of it is really good as well. I mean, and they didn't oversaturate it with too many kind of ballady kind of tricks. Like there's no big thunderous, echoing reverb whenever he hits the snare. Nothing to make it sound all sappy, right? It sounds good. It sounds really hard hitting, and it's a good song. I think that it's their better ballad. I think that if people want to write ballads, this is a good one to kind of reference.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. Ken.
Yeah, this is, this could have been the lead-off single in my opinion. I mean, instead of "Lick It Up," it's that good of a song, and Paul sings on this song great emotion. On this one, you can tell. I think he's still feeling the pain from when he wrote the song. It was just one of the best vocals, probably the best vocal for him, other than Exciter on the album. It's just fantastic. Also, Vinnie Vincent's tasteful solo on this song. I mean, they pulled back the reins on him. He didn't go overboard. He kept it nice and tasteful for the solo. So that's fantastic. And then towards the end of the song, they have what I believe is like a key change at the very end, and they go up a level, and there's a new riffing going on towards the latter part of the song, which is really cool. But the whole song from beginning to end is great. I would never skip it. Just one of the best songs on the album.
Here's the thing with Vinny. I don't think they reined him in. I think he knows exactly what to lay down for a song, and he wasn't going to go on a whammy bar seizure trip on this sort of material. Simple as that. If you listen to any of the stuff that he'd done basically before 1986, 86 is the or 85, 86 is the point where the wiring gets crossed, shall we say. And he loses all control. But you go back to that stuff he did with Treasure. Those are just perfectly nailed in pieces of guitar work in the right place for the right duration, at the right mix volume. So I don't think there's any dialing back. He knew exactly what this song needed guitar-wise, and did exactly what the song required, because it wasn't really about him. It was about the song still in 83. After that, all bets are off.
Agreed.
Now we get to the tail end of the album, which I'm kind of going to lump these all together, because for me, they're kind of the dregs of the album. Fits Like a Glove, Dance All Over Your Face. Gene takes all the credit for those, which means he takes all the blame for, it's just like a hot knife, butter, logs, fireplaces, candy canes. It's just the lowest common denominator of lyrical work. I can't think of any, using those other words just fried my mind of where to go with that. Yet it's a song that lasts in the set list from this album, the second longest to Lick It Up.
All the way. They played it every tour from Lick It Up all the way through Hot in the Shade.
Yeah. I played it a lot. I remember.
Played this.
Can't go a little too much.
You know what, though? There's one thing about this song that's really bugs me about this song, though, is that whenever they've played this song live, why is it that Gene always halts that middle part and goes, knife, and he never does the through the song, It's like, why does he never do the butter? Does he realize that maybe it's a really tacky lyric and just doesn't, and feels embarrassed to say through butter on stage, or what? Because every time he does it, it's like you're expecting him to do like the whole vowel after he does the middle part, there. I don't get it. I don't understand.
To sing the audience to sing through butter.
I never hear them do it on any of the bootlegs or anything I've ever seen. I've never heard the audience do the through butter.
I'm sorry. Maybe in South Park, they would sing butter. What audience is going to come to a rock concert to sing about butter, regardless of the context?
Margarine.
South Park.
Margarine. There you go. Through margarine. There you go.
Yeah.
Can't believe it's butter.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So Ken,
Going back.
Fits Like a Glove, Dance All Over
Yeah,
Your
I mean,
Face. Are
when
we into filler?
Maybe. When I first
Maybe.
listened to it, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it when it first came out. I thought it was pretty cool. I liked the way they extended his vocal on it. With the tricks, making it the scream go on forever in the middle of the song.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. I just like to say a shout out to Daniel over in Sweden. This is like one of his favorite
Daniel's song.
songs. This is his song. Fits Like a
That's
Glove.
his song.
I'm guessing this is probably his favorite off the album. I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there with a hammer and nails, building his house, humming along to "Fits Like a Glove."
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's screaming
Oh, yeah.
when he hits his finger too with the hammer. So
Screaming at you guys as he's listening.
but yeah, I mean, it's not as good. I got tired of it. I was like, why are they putting this song in every tour now? It's like, oh, come on, you could give us something better. There's a lot better stuff they could do. So it's okay. I'm all right with it. It's not as good as when I first listened to it the first time. It's actually over time I've gotten more tired of it.
Well, Dance All Over Your Face. I'm just wondering. You played your hand and now you lose. Well, listen, bitch, I've got news for you. Is this like a song for Shannon?
Wow.
Oh,
No.
Wow.
yes.
Hey,
Well, I mean,
I'm still banned from Gene's Twitter. I got nothing to lose.
the funny thing is you're talking about how you lump these three songs together. I think, in all honesty, I think "Dance All Over Your Face" is the weakest of the three, in my opinion. I honestly think that of the three of them, I don't really mind. And on the eighth day there, because I think out of all of them, I think it's kind of, it's the one that has kind of the more memorable chorus, in my opinion, out of all of them. I kind of remember that one the most out of all of them. I mean, "Fits Like a Glove." I mean, it's I don't know if we're just bitter on it because we've heard it so much, like we mentioned earlier, and the whole "Dance All Over Your Face" is just a bad song lyrically and musically. But I think that if they would have maybe spent a little bit more time, and maybe if they included a little bit more outside help on the eighth day, it could have been one of the better tunes out of those three. It is the better one out of the three, I think. So I mean,
Yeah.
it is filler, those three, don't get me wrong, but I think that last song is definitely the better of the three.
Here's the thing with that last song, and I totally agree with what you said. I lumped them together just, gratuitously. If they had retained more of the original Boys Are Gonna Rock demo and just kept it straight, as Boys Are Gonna Rock, it would have been a far better song in this form as Kiss doing it than I think it was with Vinny doing it later on his own, because he just went over the top on it. But where if it had the over the topness of Lick It Up level, it would have been fantastic. And with Gene singing it, maybe Vinny doing a little bit more prominent backing vocals on it. Musically, the pieces are all there. Lyrically, it's better, as Boys Are Gonna Rock with those sections. So instead of turning it into On the Eighth Day, and I think that's a great song title, a great song concept.
Oh yeah.
That it just got a little bit over processed going through the recycling machine, being worked on, where the other bits and pieces of Warrior that come through on this album are a little bit more subtle. That this would have been the great case to not have the subtlety of its use. So and then it would have been a strong finishing track for the album, which they obviously had hoped it was going to be. Ken, what's your take on that?
Yeah, well, you know what? Dance All Over Your Face. I mean, I don't skip these last couple songs. I think they're okay. But Dance All Over Your Face, I thought was like an attempt. If you listen to the beginning riff, I think it was Gene's attempt to write a AC/DC song. It's just listen to it next time and think about it. I think is an attempt at that. But I agree with Mark on the eighth day. I thought that was a good ender. It could have been a little better, but
I'm not waiting till later to listen to the beginning.
Enjoy it. So yeah. So it's those songs are okay for me. I mean, they're definitely better than Gene's material. Animalize, for instance. They're a whole level up from Animalize written songs. So again, I don't skip. I really don't skip anything on this album. because I enjoy it pretty much, the whole way through. It just works all together as one complete thing.
Nice. Lonnie.
Yeah, on the eighth day, I can see what they were trying to do. They're trying to make almost like an anthem. They're another rallying type song, and it's decent. And I guess I can agree with this. Of those final 3 tracks, it's probably my favorite. But I think you're talking about Animalize. I think with these last 3 songs, I think we get a taste of what's to come from Gene, songwriting wise. I think it's definitely filler here, and then it continues on into Analyze what we get from Gene, and continues actually for a little while onward. So, well, I take that back. And his songs on Asylum aren't so bad, but we definitely get a taste of what's to come from Gene for the next album, and it's just downhill spiral. So, on the eighth day is decent. I like the riff to it, and I think they were trying to make kind of a rallying cry type song for this new version of the band, this new marketable version of the band anyway. So, it's the 3 tracks are just filler to me, to be honest with you, just rounding out the album. But for whatever reason, we found the need to play one of them in concert for the next however many years. I don't quite understand it, but maybe Daniel could give us some perspective on that when he's on the show the next time.
If it's like Love, that was sung by Eric, wasn't it? So what? I can't remember.
No. Young and Wasted was
Eric, but Gene still sang.
I can't even hear that in my head, live. So I must be blocking it out. So
trying to anyway.
Mark, thoughts on those final 3? I can't remember if I'd already asked you or not.
I kind of went through it saying that I thought the last song was the strongest of the bunch there. So, they are filler, but I think that they're the best. One of the 3 is the last one, and if they would have put a bit more effort into it, it would have been probably a lot better than it actually ended up being. So, yeah, I did talk about it. Yeah.
So, as we kind of bring the show to an end, I was just going to do some show and tell on those. I was going to show the Canadian one, which has the cool black and white center ring. Here's my Mexican copy that's got the pink logo. It goes up to 11.
It's the Vinny version. It's pink.
And then, of course, the very nice.
Yeah. Japanese.
Japan, we are still wearing makeup. Oh wait, just kidding. Always love that overlay. I couldn't find that album. There's a couple versions of that Obi as well on that. Cool collectibles, but there's I don't think there's that much out there of real interest when it comes to Lick It Up and collectibles. On the singles, there's the UK poster bag for Lick It Up, and that's backed with Not for the Innocent. Canada, I think the single also has the white center ring with the black and white logo on it. I'm not going to cheat and go onto the website and find out, but I don't think there's a whole ton of really cool stuff. The picture disc, now that is cool. That album looks good as a picture disc. So let's wrap this up with some final thoughts on the album, or anything that I've not asked or talked about. Mark, go straight to you on this for final thoughts about Lick It Up.
Well, overall, I think it's a good album. I think I still like Creatures of the Night better. I think overall, sonically, I think Creatures has a beat just because I think that they actually focused on the production, the sonics of that record, because they wanted to make a big comeback at that point, and they kind of, really focused in on that. And on this record, I think the focus was more on the makeup coming off, so maybe they didn't need to focus as much on the sonics. It's still good, but it would have been that much better, I thought, if they had a sort of similar, sonic to it. Maybe not as, bass heavy on the kicks, but I just think that would have been better if it had a similar sort of tonality to it. But I think overall it's a great record. I listen to it quite frequently. I also watched quite a few bootlegs from this on YouTube. One of my favorites is the Quebec City show that they have on there. I watch that one whenever I have a chance, and If there's one thing that there's quite a bit of, I find, is that there's a good selection of bootleg shows on YouTube from this tour. So that's always a good thing if you're interested in seeing what's going on with them at that point and seeing how uncomfortable Gene is out of his costume at this point.
Yeah.
And how comfortable Paul is. It's like he just won the lottery. He's jumping around there so much, right? So, but I think it's a good album. Like I said, I still listen to it a lot, and it's a winner in my eyes.
Lonnie.
Going back to what I said earlier, it's decent. It's not my favorite Kiss album. It wouldn't be in my top 10 Kiss albums either. It's fine. I don't hold it in near as high regard as I do Creatures of the Night. We sat here 5 minutes ago and talked about the last 3 tracks are just filler. Well, if it's that great of an album, and if someone's going to hold it in such high esteem, well, we all sat here and kind of agreed that the last 3 tracks just kind of suck. So, it's not my favorite. Like I said, there's some, but it does have its moments. I do like Exciter. I do like 1,000,001. They're 2 great Kiss songs. But as far as an album goes, I think that it's just not there for me as far as listening to track 1 through 10. There's the skip button quite a few times, and for me, even though it's listening to my favorite band, my favorite band's one of their albums. So it's okay, but I would if I'm going to listen to some stuff, I'd rather just pull some stuff off the album as opposed to listening to the album as a whole. So it's fine. It was one of the later albums I picked up in my going back and buying Kiss albums, and it's just okay in my opinion. So, there's other albums out there that, you guys might think, Revenge is just like Julian, you think Revenge is just okay usually in your opinion. And, but it's everything what makes us Kiss fans. There's so many different, not only albums, but different styles of music all within one band. So,
yeah,
it's just not my Kiss.
If we recorded the show tomorrow about the same subject, we might have completely different opinions on the songs.
And that's what's so great about being a Kiss fan and so great about the FAQ message board is that you can go on a rant one day and next day, no, I really don't feel that way at all.
Yeah, there's very little consistency. There are some people who are absolutely adamant straight across the board, but I think, it depends on my mood. Which side of the bed did I get up on how I'm going to feel about this album? When I was younger, when I was a teenager, I would have given it 10 out of 10 across the board. Now, today, at this moment, I'm thinking there's 4 really, really good songs on this album, and the rest are either meh to atrocious. So Exciter, Lick It Up, 1,000,001, and All Hell's Breaking Loose. For me, are those 4 right now. And Not for the Innocent, I've just probably said is kind of middle of the road, and the rest is, kind of fillerish. So that is nowhere near Creatures, but I think you get the added bonus of the makeup came off. This is them unmasked the first time, and that gives them a certain amount of leeway to get away with it. Certainly, the album sounds great.
And we go back to, like I said, it's not my Kiss, but you know what? Somebody discovered Kiss with Lick It Up, and it's their asylum or their revenge or destroyer or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's just different, time frames and different styles of the same band that we all love.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. If you could say you discovered Kiss with Lick It Up, at least you don't have to say you discovered Kiss with Asylum.
Wow.
Yeah. Ken.
Yeah, well, for me, it's a top 10 album for me, as far as Kiss. I think, and I've said this before, it kind of is in a tie, roughly. Lick It Up and Revenge is kind of like a tie for me. Those 2 albums. I feel I listened to Lick It Up more than Creatures of the Night. Seriously, I think I listen to it more. Doesn't mean I like it better overall, but I think it's the attitude, something about it that I like a lot. So it's a top 10 for me. The sum of all its parts is what makes it a good album. Again, I think definitely 5 to 6 of the songs are, probably 5 are great great songs, Kiss classics, in my opinion, on this album. So it's a good one. I mean, there's the Lick It Up tour, and I was able to see that too. I was lucky enough, though they weren't allowed to use pyro.
Wait, where did you see them? Was that Berkeley?
It was Berkeley Community Theater.
Yeah, they kept downsizing the venue.
They had to downsize from San Francisco Civic Auditorium. Yeah. Not enough tickets were being sold, so they moved it over to a smaller place in Berkeley. But Berkeley wouldn't allow them to use their pyro or anything. So Paul pretty much came out at the beginning and said, the fire marshal's not going to let us, play, use our stuff, but we're going to kick your, what. So, and they did. It was a really good performance, and they went crazy, running around the stage. So it was good. It was memorable. I love the period. Creatures to Lick It Up is a real good period for Kiss.
And for, the collectors, the audio people, there are a lot of shows from this tour. And, the ones where, Paul's apparently getting pissed off at Vinny for going on forever with his solos.
Yes.
You know what? I think that last show's of Evansville. Let me fact check myself, because I hate it when I'm wrong and I think that Van Halen's 84 was released in 83. And dumb shit like that. So Evansville was the last show, and that's an excellent audio recording, and that one's out there. But, there's so many shows from this whole tour. I like the ones from Europe a bit more because I think the set's better than it became later on, but obviously you don't have All Hell's Breaking Loose in there, which comes across pretty cool live as well. So, there's a great deal of stuff. There's also stuff that, didn't make the album. So, and I'm going to play a little bit of This Did Not Make the Album. But he did sell it to Ron Keel, so...
the Right to Rock, is it?
So Many Girls, So Little Time, I think became easier said than done, or something like that. It's crap. But, I think they also said that they tried out another one of Vinny's Warrior songs, I'm in Love, or I Need Love, whichever one it is. So I think there's plenty that could be on a deluxe edition for this album, and I would buy it. I may skip. I don't skip any of the songs, but I may not like some of them as much as I once did. But I'd love to have a deluxe of this. So, all right, let's wrap it up there. Happy birthday, Lick It Up, Vinny. Don't fall over. He looks like he's got a mannequin stand up his ass.
What?
So, join us on the board, on the topic, or on YouTube, or on Facebook, and let us know what you think about Lick It Up and everything that we've addressed today on the show. We'd love to hear your opinions. And if not, thank you for listening, and we will all see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KissFAQ podcast today. All sales are final. There are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KissFAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.